Okay. Good morning. Happy 2023. This is our first transmission of the year. We're getting off to a little bit of a late start. Lama Yesh and I were traveling to see her family in the interior of Sao Paulo. And we got back, and now we're organizing for an event with Lama Laga and Nyingma Rinpoche for the weekend. So hope everybody's doing well and that we're able to rest up during the holidays. We're going to continue our contemplation from the book Change of Heart, and we concluded the contemplation on anger. And so today we'll start a new chapter called Awakening Compassion. Compassion is not a theory. It is a feeling, an experience. It is not something we acquire, nor is it created by some biochemical process. Compassion arises in the immediacy of the moment, when we see suffering directly and realize the plight of all beings, who almost invariably respond to suffering in ways that will only intensify their tragic condition. A natural quality, an aspect of our own true nature, compassion lies dormant within us and must be awakened. This awakening is painful because it requires us to contemplate deeply the suffering of other beings. Without understanding their predicament, we cannot awaken compassion. But once we truly comprehend it, compassion begins to arise within us, and we cannot stop it from flowing. At present, our compassion is biased and restricted. We feel that some are worthy of it and others are not. The compassion we have for our family and friends, for example, is based on our attachment to them. But everyone, no matter how misguided, deserves our compassion. We need to expand it until, no longer limited by attachment, it encompasses all beings for all time. If we watch the evening news, we see plane crashes, fires, earthquakes, political, social, and economic disasters, war, terrorist attacks, all horrifying examples of pain, suffering, loss, and death. To give rise to compassion, we must put ourselves in the shoes of those touched by tragedy. If we only watch from a distance, removed and isolated, we will become hardened to the misery around us. When we vividly picture their reality in intimate detail, the compassion resolve to relieve their suffering naturally awakens. For example, imagine a desperate mother dying of starvation in a drought-stricken country, helpless to prevent the slow deaths of her children. Parents startled by a call in the dead of the night, a stranger's voice informing them that they have lost a son or a daughter, a frail and quiet man whose wife in a convalescent home cannot remember his name, a child whose playground is a war zone filled with sudden, random, and impersonal violence, a woman who has just lost her best friend to cancer. It is not hard to picture these lives that so easily could become our own. So for a moment, let's contemplate the suffering of others. and truly put ourselves in their place. This world is very unstable and very deceptive. We can have a good run of happiness and health and prosperity, and we can be tricked into thinking that it's going to last forever. But nothing lasts forever. Eventually, we will face difficulties. Our family, ourselves, our friends, our work, our countries, politically. So now, when things are good, is the time to prepare ourselves. One of Rinpoche's famous sayings is, when you need to go pee, it's too late to build a toilet. When the suffering starts to come in our lives or in those around us, it's too late to develop the methods to deal with it. Now's the time. And we do that by deeply contemplating the suffering of this world and the suffering of others and awaken compassion. When we have compassion and we're less self-centered, our suffering, our sickness also becomes lessened. Why? We all know that people that are very, very self-centered only think of themselves. Any little thing that happens, it feels like the world is ending. It's a kind of a spiritual immaturity. But people that are less self-centered, that think of others, their suffering is lessened as well as a byproduct. A story that comes to my mind is one time the Dalai Lama was having, I think it was either a kidney stone, no, it was a bleeding ulcer, which is apparently extremely, extremely painful. And he was in India, and they had to put him in an ambulance. And he said the pain was just overwhelming, but the ambulance had windows, and as he was driving in the ambulance, he could look out the window. And as they were driving along the streets of India, if any of you have ever been to India, you don't have to walk 5 feet. You see some kind of unbelievable suffering. People starving, lepers, people brushing their teeth in the water in the curb, just all kinds of unbelievable suffering. Beggars, stray dogs, monkeys. And as he was seeing that scene unfold, he started to naturally feel compassion for those beings that were suffering in his field of vision. And he said an interesting thing happened. He said immediately his own pain and suffering lessened. It became less important. And the more he focused on compassion for others, the less his own suffering was important. So that's an example of not only do we contemplate compassion to help others, but it helps us at the same time. We call that the twofold benefit, benefiting others and benefiting ourselves.